What is up, guys? We're back with another Ultra Rumble video, and today we're talking about our expectations for Jiro and Tokoyami's potential gameplay in Ultra Rumble. If you caught my last video, then you know there's a strong possibility that one of, if not both of these characters get added next season for the anniversary, and I'm excited to talk about both because I think they'll be huge additions to the game, especially Tokoyami, who has the potential to be one of the strongest characters we've ever seen so far. So with all that said, let's jump into it. Starting with ladies first, I don't expect Jiro's kit to change much from what we saw in the One's Justice games, but obviously there will be certain tweaks made so that she fits better in Ultra Rumble. And ignore the damage numbers shown for her attacks here. These are just stand-ins and don't currently reflect her actual attack data because she's just an animation swap currently, so don't take this as a representation of her damage potential or lack thereof. And a huge shout out to LFJ for showcasing her animations and attacks. Make sure to show him some love over on his channel. I have a link in the description. But as you can see, she has a unique melee chain consisting of 3 hits with a jumping punch for her air melee. I'm sure you'll be able to mix up her melee just like every other character, and with tuning, she'll likely be able to do even more. But moving on to her alpha attack, essentially she shoots a sound wave at enemies that may or may not stun them. In One's Justice 2, she could also stab and stun enemies with her earphones, but in Ultra Rumble, I expect her alpha to function similar to present mics, where it just hits you but doesn't apply a stun effect. But I can see it potentially being like his beta, where it can not only stun you but also deafen, so that'll be interesting to see how it's ultimately handled. She'll also be able to aim in, so I can see potential for her alpha to have a variation similar to Tamaki's, where it switches from just a projectile. So maybe when she aims in, she attempts to stab you with the earphones and stun you. I would be okay with that because I just like versatility and variety for characters, but I can also see other players being frustrated with that because of the amount of stun and grab characters currently in the game. Next we have our beta, which is called Ground Digging, and it looks to be pulled from OJ2, where she creates a ground wave attack that slams into enemies. Obviously this looks pretty similar to Strike Kirishima's beta and looks to be a hard-hitting, straightforward attack. Between this and her alpha, it looks like you'll definitely want to stay on the move while fighting her, and depending on how good your aim is with her, you'll definitely be able to apply pressure with her. But as you can see, her beta looks to be one hard hit that will likely hit multiple enemies. For her gamma, in the files it's called Discord Attack, and it summons a speaker that projects a sound wave at enemies. It's unclear if you'll be able to aim the direction of the attack similar to Momo's cannon, or if we'll be able to spawn more than one at a time, but the model for the amp has also been in the file since launch, so again, I don't expect many surprises from her when she's finally released. Finally, let's talk about her special action, Search. If you're familiar with the anime, you know that she's one of the best when it comes to scouting enemy locations, and that's going to be what she does here. She stabs her earphones into the ground and she'll be able to locate enemies. There's currently no way of knowing how far this will reach or how much ground it will cover, but I expect it to function similar to Hawk's Gamma, where it marks enemies for a time, which is crucial information in a battle royale, and that's definitely going to be a problem for people looking to hide because if Jiro's around, it's a wrap. We also get a chance to see her finishing animation and her plus ultra animation, and that pretty much wraps up the Jiro showcase. I'm really looking forward to her being added because I think she'll be great as a scout on the team and she'll definitely be able to put out some damage. As far as what role I think she'll be, based on how her attacks work and the nature of her special action, I can see her possibly fitting into one of these 3 roles. Ideally, I think the game does need more assault characters, and her attacks definitely look to be hard hitting, so I can see that being her role, but based on her special action, I can see her fitting into the technical role, but based on how Byking has been doing things, there's a high chance that she'll likely be another strike character, which I know would be disappointing for a lot of players, but you guys let me know down in the comments which role you want her to be. Moving on to the character I'm really excited to see added to the game, Tokoyami. I think his gameplay will be a lot different from how he's designed in the One's Justice games, given that this is an open world game and not an arena finder. And he'll also be unique because he'll essentially have 2 different variations of gameplay based on Dark Shadow. As you can see with his base melee, he has a 2-hit string that launches enemies into the air, but it looks like that changes when Dark Shadow is spawned and adds a 3rd melee attack, and it looks like his air melee varies depending on whether Dark Shadow is out or not. Dark Shadow allowing Tokoyami to float or fly is definitely a possibility, and we'll talk more about that when we get into some of his other attacks, but I expect Dark Shadow to add to his mobility. I don't believe it'll be like what you're seeing on screen because being able to move like that just from air melee would be broken, but I can see the potential. but essentially his alpha looks to be what summons Dark Shadow, but we currently don't have a real representation for how that will work. I assume that if you just tap the alpha it summons him, but maybe if you aim in you can launch Dark Shadow at enemies and he'll either do an automatic attack or you can possibly control what he does from there, or again similar to Tamaki, aiming in could change your attack. For his beta, apparently he sends Dark Shadow at enemies, but it's unclear what his attack will be once he's launched. But it appears to be an attack that can also be done in the air. Typically, betas are some of the hardest hitting attacks in the game. I would expect this to be similar, whether he either does a ton of AoE damage or something designed for a bit of crowd control. We'll have to wait and see. But in One's Justice 2, he sends Dark Shadow out to do an auto combo, but here I think he'll probably either do a slam attack for AoE or a wide sweeping attack for crowd control, but it literally could be anything, so your guess is as good as mine. Now for his Gamma, it's described as Tokoyami sending Dark Shadow to grab enemies. What he does once he's grabbed you is unclear, but obviously it's going to hurt in some way. I can see him pulling enemies back to Tokoyami to set up for other attacks similar to Deku with his Black Whip, but I think it's more likely that he'll just do a slam similar to his attack in OJ2. It'll be interesting to see how far Dark Shadow is able to reach and how he works indoors, and I'm also curious to see if there are any factors that change his size potentially because of how he's affected by light and darkness. Unfortunately, they don't have animations for his special action in the files, but we do have voice lines of other characters reacting to his special action being used on them, and while that's not definitive, I think he'll ultimately have a similar special action to Hulk's, but with the potential twist of being able to pick up downed allies. I think being able to fly allies around will be a great feature for him, especially since we saw him do it more in the later seasons as he developed his abilities, and having a teammate who can get you back up fast is always a win. Now the twist to all of this is we could see him have a completely different set of moves or possibly a third variation of attacks, because there's a chance they could add his Black Ankh special move where he covers himself in Dark Shadow. At best, I see this potentially being used to alter his melee attacks when Dark Shadow is summoned, but it was added for him in the upcoming All's Justice game, and if you didn't know, the same studio is behind Ultra Rumble, so there's definitely a strong chance that they'll be sharing resources between projects. I think Tokoyami has the potential to be one of the most dominant characters added to the game, and he should have decent mobility while also being a bit of a powerhouse because of how dynamic Dark Shadow can be. I'm really hoping they include him receiving a potential buff or debuff to his damage depending on if he's fighting indoors or outdoors because of lighting, and I think it would be a huge addition to make a nighttime variation for UA Island, and when he's on that map he gets a damage buff by default. Like I said, he has a ton of potential to really be a game changer, and I'm really excited to see what the devs do with his kit and tuning perks once he's added. As far as what I expect his role to be, I think he'll be our next support character because of his special action specifically, but there also doesn't seem to be a lot of logic behind assigning roles to characters lately, so again it's a toss-up. But now I want to hear from you guys down in the comments. Do you think Tokoyami will be a support, and which character are you looking forward to the most? Let me know down below, and make sure to drop a like if you enjoyed the video and subscribe because I do have some Tech Mirio gameplay dropping next, and we'll also be doing a gameplay prediction breakdown for Stain and Mineta as well, so make sure you lock in. Thanks as always for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.